So today we're going to be using the Gracey Curets, which are used for fine scaling and root planing. We have the Gracey 1-2, which is for the anterior teeth. It has two working ends and one cutting edge on each end. We have the Gracey 11-12, which is for mesial surfaces, buccal surfaces, or lingual surfaces. It has two working ends and one cutting edge in one end. And we have the Gracey 13-14, which is used on the distal surfaces. It has two working ends and one cutting edge. The Gracey 11-12 and the Gracey 13-14 are used only on the posterior teeth, and the Gracey 1-2 is used on the anterior teeth. In order to scale the buccal surfaces of number 3 and 4, I'm going to be sitting at a 9 o'clock position. I'm going to tell my patient to put their chin up since we're going to be working on the maxillary arch, and I'm going to tell my patient to turn to their left a little bit. I'm going to use my mirror to retract the cheek, and I'm going to start by scaling the distal surface. So I'm going to be using the Gracey 13-14. In order to know the correct working end, I'm going to place my lower shank, and it has to be parallel to the distal surface. The bend of the lower shank needs to be pointing towards the distal, which is V to the D. That's when you know you have the correct working end. If you put the other end, the V is pointing towards the mesial, so that's the incorrect working end. This will be the correct working end. So I'm going to be fulcruming on the occlusal surfaces of the premolar teeth. I'm going to have a modified pen grasp, and I'm going to insert at the distal line angle of number 3, and I'm going to do some overlapping strokes. Make sure you're rocking on your fulcrum. Same for number 4. Insert at the distal line angle, do vertical overlapping strokes, and rock on your fulcrum. In order to do the mesial surface, I'm going to use my Gracey 11-12. I'm going to make sure I have the correct working end, and I'm going to place my blade on the crown of the tooth. The blade has to curve towards the tooth, so this will be the correct working end. You can also see that it has a little bend at the lower shank that is pointing towards the distal. So that could be the correct working end. If you put it on the other side, the blade is pointing towards the gingiva, so that wouldn't be the correct working end. So I have my correct working end. I'm going to fulcrum on the occlusal surface of the premolar teeth, and I'm going to start at the distal line angle of number 3. I'm going to do oblique overlapping strokes, and I'm going to roll into the mesial line angle and do vertical overlapping strokes on the mesial surface. The same for number 4. I'm going to start at the distal line angle and do oblique overlapping stroke, roll into the mesial line angle, and do vertical overlapping strokes. Okay, you have to make sure you roll into the contact area, and you don't want to cause tissue trauma. Now we're gonna do the facial surfaces of number 10 and 11. For the surfaces toward us, we're gonna be sitting at a 9 o'clock position. We're gonna tell our patient to turn towards us a little bit, and we're gonna be using the Gracey 1-2 to scale the anterior teeth. In order to know the correct working end, we're gonna place the blade on the crown of the tooth, and it has to curve towards the tooth. So this will be the correct working end. If we were to put the blade on this side, it will be on the gingiva, so we will cause tissue trauma. So we're gonna be at the midline of the tooth. I'm gonna be fulcruming on the occlusal of the first premolar. I'm gonna insert and I'm going to do some vertical strokes, and I'm gonna roll into the mesial and do vertical overlapping strokes. Make sure you rock on your fulcrum. Same for number 11. I'm gonna start at the midline of the tooth. I'm gonna do vertical strokes, then I'm gonna roll into the mesial and do overlapping vertical strokes. For the surfaces away from me, I'm gonna be at the 12 o'clock position. I'm gonna turn my instrument around, make sure I have the correct working end. I'm gonna tell my patient to turn to the right a little bit more. I'm going to be fulcruming on the incisal edge of the anterior teeth, and I'm going to insert at the midline of the facial surface and work towards the distal. So I'm going to insert at the midline, do vertical strokes, roll into the distal, and do overlapping strokes. Same for number 11. Insert at the midline, roll into the distal line angle, do overlapping strokes. To work on the buccal surfaces of number 14 and 15, I'm going to have my patient turn towards me as much as they can. I'm going to be sitting at a 10 o'clock position. I'm going to do the distal surfaces first, so I'm going to use the Gracey 1314. And I'm going to make sure I have the correct working end. So I'm going to fulcrum on the occlusal surface of the second premolar. I'm going to do number 14 first. So I'm going to insert at the distal line angle, roll into the distal contact area, and do overlapping strokes. Roll on your fulcrum. Same for number 15. Insert at the distal line angle, do overlapping strokes, rock on your fulcrum. And you can apply light pressure or medium pressure depending on the type of calculus you have. For the mesial and the buccal surface, I'm going to be using the Gracey 1112. So I'm going to be making sure I have the correct working end. I will be fulcruming on the occlusal surface of the premolar teeth. I will start at the distal line angle and do oblique overlapping strokes, roll into the mesial and do overlapping strokes. Same for number 15. We'll start at the distal line angle, oblique strokes across the buccal surface, roll into the mesial line angle and do vertical overlapping strokes. When we're working on the mandibular arch, we're gonna tell our patient to put their chin down. Since we're gonna be doing the lingual surfaces of number 20 and 21, I'll be sitting between 9 and 10 o'clock position. And I'm gonna tell my patient to turn away from me a little bit. I will start by doing the distal surfaces, so I'll be using the Gracey 1314. And I'm going to make sure I have the correct working end. I'm going to be fulcruming on the incisal edge of the anterior teeth. I'm gonna do the number 20 first. So I'm gonna insert at the distal line angle of number 20, and I'm gonna do vertical overlapping strokes. Now with number 21, I'll insert at the distal line angle and do overlapping strokes on the distal surface. Now I'm going to be using my Gracey 1112 to do the lingual surface and the mesial surface. Make sure I have the correct working end. I'm going to be fulcruming on the incisal edge of the anterior teeth. I'm going to start on number 20, the distal line angle. Do the lingual surface, roll into the mesial line angle, and do overlapping strokes. I'll be fulcruming, I'll be rocking on my fulcrum. So number 21, start at the mesial line angle of the lingual surface, do oblique strokes, roll into the mesial line angle, and do vertical overlapping strokes. For the lingual surfaces of number 22 and 23, we're going to be using the Gracey 1-2. I'm going to be sitting at a 9 o'clock position, and I'm going to make sure that I have the correct working end for the surfaces toward me. So this is the correct working end. I'm going to start on number 22 at the midline of the lingual surface. I'm going to roll into the mesial and do vertical overlapping strokes. Same for number 23. I'm going to start at the midline of the tooth, roll into the mesial line angle, and do vertical overlapping strokes. Now to do the surfaces away from me, I'm going to be sitting at a 12 o'clock position, and I'm going to be turning my instrument around. I will be starting at the midline of the tooth, insert on number 22, and roll into the distal surface and do vertical overlapping strokes. For number 23, I'm going to start at the midline of the lingual surface. Right when you start at the midline, you have to roll because the lingual surfaces are very short, so you don't want to cause tissue trauma. Roll into the distal line angle and do vertical overlapping strokes. To do the lingual surfaces of number 29 and 30, I'm going to be sitting at a 9 to 10 o'clock position. I'm going to tell my patient to turn towards me as much as they can. I'm going to start doing the distal surfaces, so I'll be using the Gracey 13-14 for those. I'll make sure I have the correct working end. And I'm going to start on number 29. I'm going to be fulcruming on the incisal edge of the anterior teeth. I will insert at the distal line angle number 20 and do overlapping vertical strokes, rocking on my fulcrum. Same for number 30. I'm going to start at the distal line angle and roll into the distal and do overlapping strokes, making sure I'm applying light pressure and I'm rocking on my fulcrum. Now I'm going to be using the Gracey 11-12 to do the mesial and the lingual surface. I'm going to see that I have the correct working end. I'm going to be fulcruming on the incisal edge on the anterior teeth. I'm going to start at the distal line angle of number 29. And I'm going to do oblique strokes on the lingual surface and roll into the mesial line angle and do overlapping vertical strokes on the mesial surface. We'll do the same on number 30. Start at the midline of the distal line angle, do oblique strokes on the lingual surface, roll into the mesial line angle, and do vertical overlapping strokes on the mesial surface. So that's how we use the Gracies. It is very important to use the correct Gracie on the correct area that you're using. Example, if you want to scale the anterior teeth, use the Gracie 1-2. If you want to scale distal surfaces of the posterior teeth, use the Gracey 13-14. And if you want to scale the mesial surfaces of the posterior teeth, use the Gracey 11-12. Also, it's important to be adapted correctly and use the correct working end, just because you don't want to cause any tissue trauma to your patient. And that'll be everything for today. Thank you.